Today, we're diving into one of the most famous cases in Australian law, the Amadio case. But listen, this is not some dry, dusty legal story. It's a really powerful human drama. It's about family, it's about trust, and it's about a deal that went so incredibly wrong, it literally changed the rules of fairness for everyone.
So this whole story really boils down to one huge question. I mean, we all sign contracts, right? For our phones, for our apartments, maybe even a home loan. But what happens when one side holds all the cards? At what point is a deal so completely lopsided that a court should just step in and say, hang on, no, this isn't right? Well, the story of the Amadio family gives us a pretty clear answer.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story doesn't start in a fancy courtroom. It starts in the home of an elderly couple who, just wanted to help out their son. So you've got Mr. and Mrs. Amadio. They were migrants to Australia, getting on in years, and they didn't have a great grasp of written English. Now their son, he was a property developer, and as far as they knew, his business was a huge success. The problem was, it wasn't. At all. It was actually failing, and the bank knew it. To keep things going, the bank needed a guarantee. And who did they turn to? Their son's trusting parents.
Okay, this is where the law gets really interesting. The Amadios weren't just a little bit uninformed. They were in a position that the court later called a special disadvantage. And it wasn't just one thing. It was this whole cocktail of factors that, when mixed together, made them incredibly vulnerable.
What's so important to get here is how all of this stacked up against them. It wasn't just that they were older or that their English wasn't perfect. It was that they had absolutely no idea their son's company was in serious financial trouble. On top of that, they were told the guarantee they were signing was only for a limited time and a limited amount of money. And maybe the biggest piece of the puzzle, they trusted the bank. They just assumed the bank would be fair and explain the real situation to them. They were, for all intents and purposes, completely in the dark.
So now let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this deal. Because, having a disadvantage on one side only becomes a real legal problem when the other party knows all about it and then decides to use it.
Look at this gap. It's massive. The Amadios thought they were just offering a small, temporary lifeline to a business that was doing great. But the bank knew the real story. They knew the business was basically broke. They knew the guarantee wasn't limited. It was unlimited, meaning every single thing the Amadios owned, including their house, was on the line. And they knew the Amadios had no idea. This wasn't a simple mix-up. This was a Grand Canyon-sized imbalance of knowledge and power. And it shows that fairness isn't just about the words on the page. It's about the power dynamics between the people signing.
So the Amadios signed the paperwork, and when their son's business finally and inevitably collapsed, the bank came calling. They wanted the Amadios' house. The case ended up going all the way to the High Court of Australia. So how did the system handle what was, let's be honest, a clear injustice?
The court brought in this incredibly powerful idea, unconscionable conduct. Here's the key. This isn't just about a bad deal or a tough negotiation. It's about something much more serious. It's when one party is aware of the other's major disadvantage, like the Amadios' age, their language barrier, their total lack of information, and then actively uses that weakness to get what they want.
This quote just nails it. Equity is basically the part of our legal system that acts like a conscience. It's there to make sure things are fair, especially when sticking to the strict letter of the law would lead to a terrible outcome. The court was essentially saying its job is to protect vulnerable people from being taken advantage of. The bank didn't just drive a hard bargain, they unconscientiously, or, unfairly, exploited the Amadios.
And with that, the court made its final call. The guarantee was thrown out. It was made void. The bank couldn't touch it, and the Amadios did not lose their home. It was just a clear, powerful victory for fairness over exploitation.
But wait, the story doesn't end there. The whole reason we're still talking about this case from 1983 is because of its enormous ripple effect. This wasn't just a win for one family, it effectively became a shield for everyone else.
First, this case set the precedent. It became the go-to example, the legal benchmark for unconscionable conduct. Then, that core idea of fairness was so important that it was actually written directly into our laws, especially the Australian consumer law. And that is why this matters to you and me today. That legacy protects all of us from things like predatory loans, crazy unfair contract terms, and basically any situation where a big, powerful company tries to take advantage of someone who's in a vulnerable spot. And that leaves us with a big question for right now.
The Amadio's disadvantages were things like age and language. But today, we're facing all new kinds of complexities. What about being digitally illiterate when you're asked to agree to a 50-page online contract you can't possibly understand? What about the huge information imbalance created by algorithms that know more about you than you know about yourself? The Amadio principle is timeless. It's about protecting the vulnerable. The real question for our generation is, how do we apply that fundamental idea of fairness to the brand new challenges of today?